The Stage Door Show, celebrating the independent artist. With your host, Dave Hondell.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Stage Door Show. Tonight, this is Dave Hondell. I'm very lucky to have tonight's guest. He's an award-winning screenwriter and director, and we're so happy he's with us tonight to talk about his career and his upcoming projects. So welcome to the show, Mr. James Kerwin.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
It's our pleasure. Again, thank you for the time. You know, James, you've written for television, which we're going to get into later, but as well as the big screen. But you're also well known for your Shakespearean adaptations for the stage and theater. So what's really your first love, stage or screen?
Oh man, you know, that's for some people say that's a tough question. For me, I got to be quite honest. It's pretty cut and dry. The answer is screen. Not that I don't love directing for theater. I absolutely do. But it's not my first love. It's not my absolute passion. I started out directing for film actually, and shortly after I moved to Los Angeles from Dallas, I wound up getting hired by a few different theater companies to direct for them. Some great theater companies out here, including the Blank Theater, which is just a fabulous, fabulous theater company run by Daniel Henning. And we do shows at the Second Stage Theater, sometimes at the Stella Adler Theater here in Hollywood and Highland. And I didn't have that much of a stage background, and I had no experience actually directing for stage. So I kind of moved from film to stage, which is a weird direction to go, but I really enjoyed it. And I did that for a few years, but I really did wind up coming to the realization that I missed film simply because theater is so much an actor's medium. And I don't mean that in a negative way at all. It's just, It is an actor's medium and I'm not an actor.
Sure.
Once the lights go up, the curtains go up, you have no control of what's going on stage anymore. You can't say cut. You can't edit the performances in post-production. You can't shift the audience's, quote, camera angle so they see things a little differently. You set it and it goes. And it takes on a life of its own and it's its own thing. And while that is an incredible art form in and of itself, and I am not in any way meaning to say that it's not, and I have tremendous respect for people who work in theater. It just, for me personally, the aspects of that film has that theater doesn't have, they both have things that each other doesn't have. But for me, the aspects that film have that theater doesn't have, specifically the editing, where you can alter subtly alter the pace of a scene in post-production, for example, all of that, it's just something that I missed and I wanted to get back to. So I kind of migrated back in the direction of doing film, although I do still direct for the Blank from time to time.
So James, you know, what was your journey like? You know, getting into filmmaking. You know, when did that start for you, and what brought you to Los Angeles? I mean, I know it was film, but when did that all start for you?
Yeah, you know, it's hard to say exactly. When I was growing up, I always wanted to go into astronomy and astrophysics. That was, I knew that's what I was going to do. I was going to be an astrophysicist, and at some point, I'd say it was in high school. At some point, I realized that I really liked visual storytelling. I mean, I did what many kids do who watched Star Wars or Star Trek and played little shows with action figures and things.
Sure.
But I tended to take it to a next level, and I would use our parents' video camera, and I would start making little home movies and things like that. And at some point in time, it just became something that I realized I wanted to do. Yeah. I went to TCU in Dallas, and I started off I wanted to do a double major in astrophysics and filmmaking.
Oh, wow.
And shortly in, I realized that I would be in college for a very, very long time if I did that.
Yeah.
Because there's such disparate disciplines that had completely different course requirements and everything. And so I wound up dropping the astrophysics major. I did get a minor in it. I had enough for that. But yeah. I really decided at that point to focus on filmmaking. Yeah. So after I graduated, I worked in the industry in Dallas for several years. I started off, PAing on sets and gripping and just learning the ropes. Film school was great, but it's also, you also need the real world experience. And I was able to do a short film when I was there that kind of took off on the festival circuit. It started winning some awards. It started getting some attention from Hollywood agents. And at that point in time, I made the decision to move to LA.
Yeah, it's a good decision for sure. I know just with all the awards that you've won and all the accolades from your films, I mean, it's just amazing. It just it goes down the whole list. But I wanted to ask you this one question because as I never really got into major filmmaking like you're doing, but just when I was younger, making films, writing and directing my own piece, right? And I know that Yesterday Was a Lie, one of your pieces that you wrote and directed. Obviously writing and directing gives you the ultimate creative control. But now I guess, do you collaborate with other writers if that is the case? And do you ever collaborate with other writers to try to get different angles or different points of view to your work?
Well, I've directed things that I've written, like Yesterday Was a Lie. I've directed things that I have not written, like a recent Western film I did called When the Train Stops.
Mm-hmm.
Several episodes of Star Trek Continues I directed but didn't write, and some vice versa. So I've done both. It's tough because, yeah, absolutely. If you're doing the quote auteur thing, and I don't really like that word, but that's what they call it.
Sure.
And what I mean by that is really just if you're a filmmaker who's writing and directing your own material, you're kind of conceiving the material yourself. You're imagining it from day one. You're putting your team together. Maybe you're even assembling the producers and even maybe some of the financing and kind of just really the number one person behind the project. And it's really all yours. If you're that kind of director as opposed to a director for hire, you do have more creative control. There's a lot less money in that.
Yeah, right.
But you have more creative control.
Yeah.
But I really warn people against, including myself, against getting cocky, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Because it's really important, if you have that degree of creative control, to surround yourself with people whom you trust, and specifically whom you trust to tell you no.
Yeah.
Who you trust to say, hey, you know what, James, that scene does not work. That really needs to be cut from the script, or the way you're shooting that is really not working. Now, ultimately, the buck has to stop with you. You have to be the ultimate decision maker. You can't direct by committee. But you also have to take responsibility then for your choices. If something you do doesn't work, you fall on your sword. I mean, you take the responsibility for that. That was your choice. And so, yeah, I think it's very important to have people who are not just yes men, who can be completely honest with you, and that you listen to them and make your decisions taking all of that into account.
Yeah. No, that's well said, and I completely agree with you on that. And the other thing, you did a lot of work on Star Trek Continues, and with a franchise like that, I mean, Star Trek's been around since I was a kid, and it continues to thrive. And you're working on a franchise like that, either writing or directing it. Do you find that there's extra, I guess, I don't say pressure, but a challenge to preserve the integrity of that franchise when you're doing that project, and even down to the way people talk or the way people move around the set? I mean, is there a way that you have to kind of preserve that as a director and as a writer to make sure that you're keeping with the Star Trek theme, so to speak? Sure, yeah, absolutely. And Star Trek Continues is kind of unique and from in the sense, well, not unique because there were others at the time, but it was produced during what they called kind of the wilderness years, after Star Trek Enterprise had gone off the air, but before Discovery was on, during a time period in which CBS Paramount said that they were okay, essentially, they tacitly allowed independent producers to make their own Star Trek content and post it on the web. And Star Trek Continues was one of these web series, and but it was, the idea kind of behind it was to do one of these fan film web series, but one that was staffed both in front and behind the camera by industry professionals, right? Professional writers, professional directors, department heads, professional actors, including many of the actors from the quote real Star Trek were on ours. So I think that shows in the quality of what we did.
But yeah, when you're working in somebody else's sandbox, you always have to respect that, I think. And in the case of STC, one of the interesting things about it was we really wanted to make it feel like it was the fourth season of the original Star Trek series back in 1969, 1970. So we didn't want to write or direct it as a modern television series would be made today. So that was a huge challenge, because when I go to direct a scene, I'm not just thinking, hey, how would I direct this now? How would I direct a scene today? How would I tell this story? Yeah. What I'm actually thinking is, how would a director in 1969 have told this story? Wow. And that's a huge challenge, because even stuff like the camera equipment that we have available to us now, like Steadicams and things like that, we didn't have that. They didn't have those things back then.
A lot of single shot tripod shots, things like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah, locked off shots. I mean, if you're moving the camera, you've got a massive dolly that you're moving that thing on. Yeah. And you have to be very careful about the way you're setting up shots. There's not a lot of handheld stuff. And so you're really shooting things in a very different way than you would shoot things today. Even action scenes, like in the first episode of STC that I directed, there's a phaser battle in the hallways, and there were so many things I would have wanted to do with it if it was something I was shooting today. Correct. But it wasn't. It was something that was designed to look kind of in that, I don't want to say stilted, but somewhat stiff style from 1969, the way things were staged and shot, just because they didn't have the resources to shoot things the way we do now.
Well, even the lighting was different back then.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like studying Jerry Finnerman's lighting, our DP Matt Busey studied Jerry Finnerman's lighting, just encyclopedic knowledge of it he had, and really just figured out exactly how to replicate that very distinct look that late 60s television had, particularly Star Trek. Yeah.
Just amazing. I mean, just the fact that you were able to do that and do it well is just, to me, it's amazing. Like you said, like the technology. I mean, it even changes year to year now. What we had 10 years ago, even it's completely different right now. So to go back to 1969, that's just fantastic how you're able to do that. The other thing I wanted to talk. I mean, this is something that I've talked to filmmakers about this, and I get varied answers. But you did a short that When the Train Stops, it did very, very well, and I know that I'm partial to short films. I love short films because I have very little attention span to sit through an hour and a half or 2 hour film. That's just who I am. But in today's TikTok society, where people are on their phones and watching 10-second videos or 20-second videos and scrolling to the next one, does this affect you as a filmmaker, and does it affect how you make films, knowing that our society nowadays has such a short attention span? I mean, does that affect the feature film now? I mean, I just wanted your thoughts on that.
Well, in a sense it does, and in a sense it doesn't. I mean, the one thing that it has done is the ubiquity of short, free content that's available to anyone, anywhere on the internet. Right. And like I said, the keyword there is free, short, free content. Yeah, right. Has made it pretty much impossible to monetize short films. I do love the short film format. I think it's a great art form in and of itself. But gone are the days when you could make a short film and sell it to a distributor and make some money off of it, or have it play before a movie in the theater or something. That doesn't happen now. Short films are really art for the sake of art. If you're going to make a short film, do it because you love it, because you want to. Don't do it because you think you're going to make money off it, because you're not. Right. TikTok influencers, Instagram influencers, there are ones who do make money and do have a career actually doing that. But those are the exceptions that prove the rule. Unless you are one of those really high-end online influencers, you're not going to make much, if any, money creating short content. Sure. Feature films, television, yes. Now, again, if you're working in the indie film world, which I do, you're not going to make a lot. I mean, I think there'll always be a place for feature films. there's something to be said for something that takes an hour and a half or more to tell a story,
right?
So in that sense, I don't think that the kind of the TikTok style has necessarily really impacted the way feature films are made or directed.
Yeah.
But it's certainly had an influence on the short film market, which, like I said, is virtually non-existent right now.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to make a short film, you post it online for free.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're going to do. Like even Amazon Prime,
mm-hmm.
as of last year, stopped carrying short films, except for the ones that were already in their library.
Right.
They stopped doing new ones.
Yeah.
So it's really, it really, and that's kind of sad to see that market dying. But as long as there are filmmakers who are interested in making shorts just for the sake of art, they'll still be short films.
Speaking of feature films, how long does it take to write? And just out of curiosity, I mean, I know it's there's different answers to this too, but how long does it take to write a feature film? Because I think some people don't realize that sometimes it could take a couple years, right? I mean, or longer.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends, right?
It totally depends.
Yeah.
There's no set amount of time. I mean, famously, Sylvester Stallone wrote Rocky in a matter of weeks, or days. It can be done very, very quickly, and sometimes it is done very, very quickly. Other times, there are many years from, especially if you're talking about like the initial inception of the concept, the initial idea of the story, maybe putting together a treatment or an extended treatment, and then kind of ruminating on it, and then working on the script over a while. And then as the film is in development, of course, even after the script is done, it's not really done because it's still being changed and shaped in development. It's still being changed and shaped when you're shooting, frankly.
Yeah, right.
So it's kind of never quite done. I think Yesterday Was a Lie, which is the feature that you mentioned before that I directed for Entertainment One.
Yeah.
It took, I think, I'm trying to think, from the actual original idea to principal photography was maybe 2.5 years, maybe 3 years.
Yeah.
The feature that I have in development right now is from the original conception of the idea has actually been even longer than that.
Wow.
So
it's definitely, they're definitely passion projects. I think that, when you look at the documentary market too, I mean, some of these documentaries will be shot over a period of years.
Yes.
Sometimes 10 years. Some of the best documentaries I've ever seen were following a child all the way to adulthood.
Right.
It's just an amazing, passion project. And then you have to have the technology change, the way you shoot it from those years as well. It's just fascinating to me. Just fascinating.
And also, unless you're under a deadline, it's sometimes the best thing to do for a script is to sit on it for a while. Yeah. Just to kind of put it away and not look at it for a while. Let your subconscious mind ruminate on it. Just kind of in the back of your head every once in a while. And it's surprising how many good ideas and thoughts come to you when you're not really trying. When you're not really focusing on trying to force the ideas out. Right. Sometimes like you'll write a draft of a script. You'll save the final draft file, put it away in a folder on your hard drive somewhere, not think about it for months or even a year, and then suddenly in the shower one day you'll have just a brilliant idea.
Yeah, you gotta write it down.
With the story, and you go back to it, and you. So, so if you're not in a rush, sometimes the best thing to do, and this applies to the post-production phase too, when you're editing a film, sometimes the best thing to do is step away from the project for a little bit and look at it again with fresh eyes.
I completely agree with you. What about the COVID, now that films are being made again and in the post-COVID era, I guess, even though COVID's still there, but is it something that is, as a filmmaker yourself, I mean, it's got to be exciting actually to be out there and working, doing things with the film again. But how was that, like 1.5, 2 years that it was kind of shut down? How was that for you? And were you able to kind of focus on writing more or writing, some scripts, and did that kind of help you kind of take time away from the actual production to do some writing?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I did, and I think that's what a lot of people in my sphere did, who work in the mid to lower budget range of feature filmmaking. During COVID, the only films that were made really were super, super, super low budget. I got together with two friends and filmed a little thing in my garage. Right. Or massive studio $100 million feature films that could afford millions and millions and millions of dollars on COVID compliance.
Right.
More traditional low budget features really couldn't shoot during COVID. Not a lot of them couldn't because the expenses of COVID compliance, which is an absolutely necessary thing.
Sure.
It was completely necessary.
Sure.
And it still is to be COVID compliant on your sets. But that is very expensive.
Yeah.
And just the COVID budget alone on most studio films exceeds the entire budget of many low budget indies.
Wow.
So it was just simply not practical, and by many times actually.
Yeah.
So it was simply not practical for a lot of movies to shoot during COVID.
Yeah.
And now that some of those compliance guidelines are being relaxed a little bit more, and fingers crossed, knock on wood, they will be more in the course of the coming year. I'm looking forward to getting back into production.
Yeah, that's amazing. And also I want to ask you. We have a lot of people that listen to our podcast that are budding filmmakers, budding actors, singers, that type of thing. What do you say to that budding filmmaker or writer that's looking to make this into a career? I guess, what would you say to that person? I mean, what kind of advice would you give?
Yeah, I'd say the first thing is decide if you want to write and direct for yourself or write and direct for somebody else. And both are equally valid as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
If you are a writer or a director for hire, you're working on somebody else's TV series, a big studio franchise project, something like that. You're not going to have as much creative control, but you're going to make money. And in some cases, a lot of money.
Sure.
If you want to write and direct for yourself, you will have a lot more creative control. It may feel a little more artistically satisfying, but it's not lucrative financially usually.
Yeah.
There are exceptions, of course, but those are the exceptions that prove the rule. So I would say first decide if you want to be a worker for hire or if you want to be more of an auteur. But whatever you want to do, whichever of those things you want to do, I would say, if this is truly your passion and you really can't picture yourself doing anything else, then absolutely go for it. You're going to need three things. You're going to need persistent hard work. And that over the course of many, many, many years, you got to work hard and you got to keep working hard and you can't give up. You also, frankly, do have to have a certain degree of artistic talent. And you can, if you are worried maybe that you don't have that, I encourage people to check out film courses, film schools, in which you can learn both the art and the craft and get experience. But you do, I'm not gonna lie, you do have to have an artistic voice.
Right.
And then the third thing you need, and people don't like to hear this, is you do need luck. You need to be in the right place at the right time or know the right people. Yeah. And that's just an unfortunate truth of the business. There are talented people out there. There are hardworking people out there who have just never caught a break. Yeah. There are people who will say that that's not true, and I call BS. That is absolutely true.
I think it's that way in life in general. It's not just the entertainment world, but it's in business and anything else that you do, right? Yeah. Sports, anything. Yep. So James, I know that you have a new project that you're working on right now, and it's called Contre-Coup. It's a film project. So why don't you let us know what that is? And I know that there's a fundraising aspect to this too. So why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, after I did Yesterday Was a Lie, which is kind of a philosophical, metaphysical, sci-fi leaning film. I did several other things since then, but a lot of people have said, when are you going to do another feature that kind of has not necessarily the same feel or the same themes, but that's still somewhat philosophical and really kind of the kind of sci-fi that makes you think. And Contre-Coup is a script that I've been developing for several years. And it's something I'm really looking forward to. It's a science-themed psychological mystery, I guess I would call it, for lack of a better term. And it's something that I really think people can kind of sink their teeth into philosophically if they watch it and really talk about and think about for a long time afterwards. So it's something I'm looking forward to doing. We have now the film is actually being produced through a nonprofit arts cooperative called Helicon, which is a 501c3 nonprofit arts foundation for cinematic arts, and it kind of follows the theater company business model. And we have raised a significant amount of our financing privately already. So we're kind of gearing up to go, but we would like a little more help. So we did start an Indiegogo campaign that is going to be running through the end of July, I believe, beginning of August, somewhere around there. So it is accepting donations. Donations are completely tax deductible in the U.S. Because it is a 501c3. So yeah, if people are, and there's some cool perks on that too. So if people are interested in being a part of this particular film from the ground up, I encourage people to check that out. The website of the Indiegogo campaign is fightforyourmemories.com. So if you go to that and check it out, you can help get the film made.
Yeah, I was going to say, because, anybody out there listening that wants to put some money in there, I mean, just think about it. If this thing takes off and you had a piece of that, I mean, there's no better feeling, right?
Yeah.
Well, actually, James, we'll put this on our website as well, and in our social media. So again, just guys, go onto the website and go ahead and put some money in there for a great film by a great director and a great writer. James, before we sign off, I ask this of everybody, but I wanted to know, what do you want your legacy to be when it's all said and done? When your career is hitting its twilight down the road, and what do you want your legacy? What do you want people to walk away with when they think of James Kerwin?
I want people to remember that I am just a terrible, terrible cook. I cannot cook at all. I'm really bad. I will light my kitchen on fire if I try to boil an egg.
So you make reservations.
And I'm not actually exaggerating. No, I that's an interesting question. I like the question. It's just something that, I just want to tell interesting stories that make people think. I want to tell stories that I am interested in, about themes that I'm interested in. And I hope that there are audience members out there who are interested in some of these same kind of philosophical, science-based, science fiction-y themes, more heady science fiction, character-based stories, really about human interaction and the human condition and the nature of our reality and how we interact with it as people. Those kind of stories. And there aren't a lot of those out there. So, while it would be great to say, I want to make, massive $100 million feature films and be famous, I want to tell these kind of stories.
Yeah.
That really makes me happy. And so I hope if I do leave a legacy behind, knock on wood, that will be it.
That's amazing. Really a pleasure to have you on, to get the filmmaker, screenwriter's perspective on the entertainment business, and for our listening audience. And like I said, just a pleasure to have you on. You're welcome on anytime, and thanks again for your time.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.